everybody, I'm Tom Vassell.
And I'm Chris Yee.
And today we're reviewing what?
nOg.
Yes.
You're making me say it because you're not sure, right?
It's a tough name to say. It's a Celtic name of a game. And this is a game from Grand Gamers Guild, Isaac Shalev and Jason Slingerland. And when this kind of showed up, or when I was like, I don't know why. I just didn't think much of it. The name, I was like, there's a lot of Celtic games and stuff. I was like, meh.
Sure, it looks pretty.
Sure. So this is one that kind of caught me off guard when I saw how it played, because let me show you. At the beginning of the game, each player is going to have 3 scoring cards placed in front of them, a top row, middle row, and bottom row. Everyone is going to have the same cards in their color placed in front of them, but there are several different cards you can pick or randomly choose, and they're just going to show how that row is scored. There's also the regions of nOg already in play, so as the game goes by, you're going to be adding cards to these rows, and then you'll be scoring at the end of the game for the different cards. Now, you're going to score for this one every game, and basically, for each region, whoever has the biggest connected group of each color is going to get 8 points, and second place will get 3 points. But everything else is different. So, for example, it says score each card here that has no other card of the same number in its row or column. So right now, neither of these cards would work. But this 4 would score because it's the only one in its row, and there's no 4 in that column. Here you'll score each card that is lower than the card to its left. So this card would score because it's lower than 7, etc. At the beginning of the game, each player is going to get a handful of cards, 5 cards, and you're going to build a grid based on a number of players. So this is a 4-player game, so it would be a 3. Actually, this is a 3-player game, a 3x4 grid. A 4-player game would be a 3x5, and a 5-player game would be a 3x6. Then players are going to, in turn order, take turns placing one of their storytellers between 2 cards. So let's say it's a 3-player game, and we each have 3 storytellers. So we will put them out like this. After everyone has placed out their workers, or their storytellers, then in reverse turn order, so pink would go first, you take one of the cards, you take your storyteller and one of the cards that's attached to it. So let's say they did that, and then gray decided to take this one, and you keep doing that and pulling them off. At the end of a round, anybody whose people have been left stranded in turn order will get to take any card that's left. Now, when you take a card, you're going to add it to your hand, and then you're going to play a card from your hand in one of your rows that I showed you earlier for point scoring. Some cards have different things that will happen. This says in the saga phase you can move this to the end of any row. This gives you an oncoming. This changes this to the value of the card to its left. So it's not a 2. It will change a different one. And this changes to a 2 when it's next to a green card. Some of them might even give you special abilities. Like, for example, once per round, you may place a storyteller in an occupied space. You can go where somebody else is. Some happen in scoring. This will change the color of this card to a color of the card that's next to it. Some, when you play them, you can swap the position of any 2 cards in your saga, which is your layout. And there's even one that lets you place your storytellers in the corner of 4 cards. Once all the storytellers have been taken and the cards have been played, everybody is going to have still 5 cards in their hand. You will discard 1 card from your hand, so now you have a hand of 4 cards. And you will keep doing that until the final round where you're playing only with 2 cards. At the end of the game, everyone is going to have 5 cards in each of their row, although some of the cards could change that. You might have 6 in one and 4 in another or something like that. And then you'll score like I showed earlier, and whoever has the most points is the winner. Here's an example game, and you can see the scores. So the base, there's like 2 parts of this game. There's the scoring, which is, we'll get back to the scoring in a bit. So the scoring of the columns and rows and things. But the main basis of the game, where you are placing your singers, by the way, this is a themeless game almost. I mean, they tried really hard with gorgeous art and a story, and I think like on the cards, it's telling you about the different
epic tales you're telling, but it's numbers and colors. It really is for me. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love the art in these cards so much because if you put the same colors next to each other, it forms a
Kind of a panorama.
Panorama. It doesn't matter which order you put them in. So you put all the red cards together. I love that. I don't know why anyone does that. I automatically like. But anyway, back to the game. It is essentially just putting things down. But this idea of having cards out there and you're putting something in between two cards, it doesn't mean you're even getting one of those two things. Because someone else can go there, and then whoever puts out their people last picks first, which is nice. But if someone does pick it and your person's left hanging, even that's not terrible because you can pick any of the remaining cards.
But you have to do that one last, so you're kind of waiting for all the other pick-ins to happen. It's an interesting dynamic. It works really
Sure,
well.
but there's like 4 cards left or something at that point. So you never feel like you have no choice. And here's the thing. You don't have to play the cards you take, which is something I have to like really stress every time I teach this because people kind of just have that in their mind. They're like, I would like this 3 green. I will play it here. I will take this blue, yellow. I'm like, no.
You have a hand of cards. Yeah. There is a tough decision, too, where at the end of each one of the rounds, you have to discard one of those cards left over in hand. And this is one of those games where you kind of, if you get past that hurdle, you then have this brilliant idea where you're sequencing cards in your hand. I'm taking cards, but this will be a card I play 4 turns from now because I've got this lined up. Oh, it's the end of a round and I have to discard one of these precious, precious cards? That's a neat little twist. It kind of feels like the knife is twisted in a little bit, but you are also doing that to yourself.
It's also a very clever way to keep track of how many rounds are left in the game. I like that aspect. The lower my hand gets, I know how far we are in the game. But putting those tokens out and choosing the cards, I like that. And this comes back to the scoring because there's 3 different scorings, and they're pretty basic scorings, and they're almost always easy to do. Some of them seem trickier to pull off than others until you factor in putting groups of colors together.
Yeah.
And then everything changes because those groups of colors, if you ignore that, you will lose because they can give you a lot of points. I shouldn't say you will lose, but you're giving up a good chunk of points if you don't have a big group of colors or if you don't care about groups at all and then Chris gets a group of 2 reds and wins with that. I'm like, wait, that should never have happened.
Right, yeah. Because everyone's, well, in my experience, everyone's probably like, okay, well, Tom has the most yellows. No one can really fight him on that. Well, okay, Wendy has the most greens, and I'll get the most blues. But if no one's really thinking about reds, if you're playing 3 players or playing 4 players and no one's really working at reds, you're like, well, I have 3 kind of by accident. I might take it. Like, that's an interesting level of excitement. And so there is, even with so in both the scoring half, you're looking at what other players are doing, as well as during the, I guess you'd call it kind of an open draft. Because that's really what this is, right? It's an open draft with these little limitations. You're putting your singers out there to telegraph some information. I want probably one of these 2 cards.
Yeah, I know. It's a fun back and forth. And your first play of this will be it's not a long game. It says 30 to 45 minutes on here. It's probably 45, but the first time you play will be slightly longer because of the special cards that show up. I always kind of stop and explain each one. But in your second play onward, you know those cards. You're like, oh, that's the one that lets you put something between 4 corners. Oh, that's the one where the card can change to a different color. And that's really, you then take that special ability and match it with how badly do I want that number card. Like there's one where one of the scoring is have as many of the same card in a column as you can. And so you're really thinking like, well, I really need a 3. But that special ability is good. And it's a tough choice.
I agree. And I like that. I like that there are enough special abilities that they feel good and worth it, but they're not also so rare that one person gets one in a game. And you're like, man, that one person has this huge advantage. Like you can probably get 2 of them comfortably over the course of a game. And you're going to feel different. You're going to feel unique because of it. And I like that.
So whenever I teach a game and it says 1 to 5 players, and I just say no to 5, just straight out, because 5 in these kind of games is always too long. It is not in this game. I am very content to play this with 5, 4, 3. I've not played with 2, but I played with the other 3 player counts. And 5 was fine because you just build a bigger grid and there's still stuff going back. But because the interaction is all on that board, you then take the cards
it just works out.
And what's interesting is I noticed the first time I was playing, there's a little, on each of the scoring cards, the little thing in the corner that says solo score to beat 14, solo score to beat 8. And I thought, yeah, that makes sense. I read through the solo rules of this. I haven't tried it yet. But it's weird that this game works with such a big player count. And I also immediately thought, I see how easy this is going to be to manage solo. It really, you just flip over a card and it kind of blocks a spot one at a time. And then you do your own thing. It somehow feels like an interactive game where you're aware of the other players and what they take from the middle really matters. But also, I would play this one solo. I want to check that mode out.
This was a hard one for me to rate. I think the theme is kind of superfluous, but at the same time, I really like the theme.
It's really well done.
Yeah, I like the idea of singing an epic song, and I love the artwork, and I just like the look of the game and the singers. And the card quality is good. So I like everything about that. And I also like the gameplay. That idea of just putting stuff out on cards in reverse order, it keeps things going. I played this with one of the slowest players on Earth, and it still went at a pretty decent clip, and that made me happy. I think this is a very enjoyable game. It's I'm giving it an 8. It sounds lower than I'm really struggling between 8 and 8.5, but I think it depends on how many times I want to come back to it. It could be an 8.5 in a year. It might be when I come back, because this is one that I know I will teach people, because there's something about it that's just fun to play and teach. And there's scoring card combinations I haven't tried yet. But it's a really solid, good game. So I'm giving it an 8.
Yeah, I have the exact same struggle. I'm also giving it an 8. Maybe I'm feeling just a little more cautious, but I anticipate playing this one, and I haven't played it at 5. And so hearing that it plays very well at 5, I'm actually going to go try that myself now, probably, right, at one of our conventions or something. I have fun with this. I like the idea of open drafting of cards, and I like the way that you're kind of limiting yourself. There's a lot of tension. I think that this game is so good, partly because I thought that it was longer than it actually was. When I looked at the time when we finished it, I kind of felt like I ran through the ringer of a longer game. And I looked at the time like, oh, wow, it's still early. We have plenty of time this game night. And so for something that packs a lot of punch and has this gorgeous delivery, if you've ever seen the movie Song of the Sea by Cartoon Saloon, you might be familiar with this kind of otherworldly setting. I think that will make some of the cards come to life for you and make it feel a little bit more like, the setting rather than colors and numbers on cards, because that's kind of really what it is. But at that, it is a very fun game, and I'm hoping to see maybe even in the future some new scoring cards and stuff. That would be fun. Yeah,
this is definitely one I think people will be playing next year. At least some people will be playing. I think it's definitely worth checking out. So that's Tir na nOg, maybe. I'm Tom Vassell,
and I'm Chris Yee,
and you can tell we're Celtic. Hey everybody, thanks for watching another video from the Dice Tower. Hey, you want to learn more about us, communicate with us? We have a Facebook group, we have a Discord channel, lots of different ways to get involved with the Dice Tower. You can find that in our Linktree link below. So just click that, it will take you and you can communicate with us on Facebook, join our Facebook groups. There's lots of cool things that you can find and become part of the Dice Tower. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Tom Vassell.